The following is produced and paid for by Barton Productions. Barton Productions producing quality television programming for 11 years. In addition, we produce documentaries, corporate videos, commercials, and much more. Call Barton Productions at 275-0150. Now, without further ado, we proudly present The William Pace Show. Hello, I'm William Pace. Thanks so much for tuning us in tonight. My guest tonight is Don Warrick from the Dayton Playhouse. As you know, we always start the show out by reading letters from the viewers. To write to the William Pace Show, write to P.O. Box 3644, Dayton, Ohio, 45401. That's P.O. Box 3644, Dayton, Ohio, 45401. If your letter is chosen to be read on the air, you'll receive a gift from the William Pace Show. Tonight's letter comes from a youth, a teenager, and her name is Tiffany Harden, and she says, "Dear Mr. Pace, my name is Tiffany Harden, and I am the daughter of Samuel and Renee Harden III. Could you please take the time out to read this letter and help me in any way possible? At last, people to people, which is for young people of all races to travel the world. This used to be a privilege only afforded to the rich. Now, anyone can represent our country with pride. You can open doors that would have been closed before. This is a full scholarship program where I will be traveling to Ireland and the United Kingdom for 21 days. Imagine me, Tiffany Harden, a junior attending Paul Laurence Dunbar High School of Professional Studies. I am a young lady with a 4.0 grade point average whose goals are to become a psychologist. I am very active in school, community, and church. I am a Christian who believes that I can do all things through Jesus Christ. Traveling to the United Kingdom will give me the insight and hands-on experience to appreciate the cultures and the beliefs in other countries. The experience will help me become a more cultural, well-rounded person. As Christians, we are commissioned to go ye therefore and teach all nations. To minimize the cost, I will be housed with Irish families, learning and sharing cultures together. Thank you for taking the time out to read this letter." Well, thank you very much, Tiffany, for writing, and we're going to have you on a future show. Coming up next, conversation with Don Warrick. Stay with us. Thanks so much for tuning us in tonight. My special guest is Don Warrick. He is now the director of the Dayton Playhouse. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
So how long have you been the director for the Playhouse?
Well, I've been in the hot seat now for almost 60 days.
60 days. So what is life like in the hot seat?
Well, according to my family, who never sees me anymore, it is a couple of full-time jobs.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
So you come to Dayton from Los Angeles and Boulder, Colorado.
Yes.
And was that because your wife's work at Wright State, or how did that work?
Yes. My wife finished her doctorate in music performance at Northern Colorado University about 4 years ago. And from there, her first position was at Wright State University. She is currently coordinator of vocal studies and the head of the opera program, which is a fledgling program. For all the viewers, please come and support Wright State University's opera program.
We would love to have her on the show as a guest.
Oh, really. Gosh, she'd love to come up and talk to you, I'm sure.
Okay. So you and your background in Los Angeles and in Boulder, Colorado, did you do a lot of theater productions?
Yes. I guess I should go back to square one.
Yes, where is square one?
Square one is probably Los Angeles.
Did you grow up in Los Angeles?
Oh, yes. Born and raised.
Okay.
I guess my first real experience in terms of theater management and managing a theater, a friend of mine and I opened a theater in Ventura, California, right on the beach, in a Quonset hut, dinner theater. and we owned and operated. It was called the Fireside Dinner Theater, and we were there for about 5 years until we sold it. And it's still in operation today. If you're ever in Ventura, California, please come and see the Fireside.
So you have a business background as well.
Yes.
So
yes.
Okay, so you started a theater.
Yes.
And then you got it up and going and became a big business, and you sold it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And from there, worked on the road for many years. Worked with several companies that originated out of LA. Spent some time with a couple of national touring companies. And then moved to Boulder, Colorado when we started having babies.
Now, how many children do you have?
I have two.
2 children.
2 children.
How old are they?
My son Douglas is going to be 14. My daughter is 11. My son is also an actor, fairly accomplished. He was...
I wonder why.
Well, I don't know. I think it's in his genes. Your audience may have seen him in the Human Races production of To Kill a Mockingbird at the Victoria Theater last year. He played the role of Dill. So he makes it around, and he'll be seen also in Dayton Playhouse's production, our next production, which is Gypsy.
Wow. And when is Gypsy going to be?
Gypsy opens the 9th of May, and we're in rehearsal right now. And we're just closing. Gypsy is the season closer for the 99 season. And our final straight play of the season is a play called Moon Over Buffalo, which closes this Sunday.
So, as a kid, did you know that you would be in the theater? Did you know that you would be an actor? Did you know that you'd be directing? Could you feel that? How far back?
3rd grade.
3rd grade, you knew that?
Yes.
How did it reveal itself to you?
I think everyone has that experience. When I was a child, I guess maybe I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and you get that first taste of being on stage. Do you remember? Do you remember?
I remember.
Oh, yes, you do.
I can look back at pictures of myself when I was 4 years old, and it was obvious in that picture that I was going to be in the public's eye.
Right.
There's something about the expression,
well,
something
and
about
that feedback too. The minute you get that feedback, and an audience actually gives you something back, and you realize at that moment.
I remember as a kid, my folks, my folks would tell me, I told you, I was a compulsive talker.
Yeah.
They would tell me, I told you to sit down and hush up. You know, I was always wanting to be the center of attention, you know.
Same thing with me.
So you knew that.
Oh, sure.
You knew that.
Sure.
Do you think today that parents are more in touch with their creative children? That's a big question, I know. Were you in touch as being an actor?
Yes.
And being an actor at a very early age? Were you in touch when your son wanted to be an actor and be creative?
Oh, yes.
Did you encourage him? Did you nurture that in him?
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, his mama and I have been on the stage since way before he was born.
That's probably all he,
and it's all he knows.
Yeah.
I can remember we worked at a restaurant, it was an opera restaurant in Los Angeles for many years called Verdi in Santa Monica. And I can remember after he was born, we bought him the smallest tuxedo in the world. And so this little tiny man, 18 months old, we're out there singing, what was it, Traviata. And his mom and I are out there singing our lungs out, and this little tiny man, 18 months old, just barely walking, walks out in a tuxedo and looks at the audience. And he knew at that moment that that was his place.
Now, you're also a singer, too.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Did you study
oh, yes.
Singing?
Sure.
Did you study what kind of singing?
Classical is my orientation.
Classical. So we have that in common.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
We got a lot to talk about.
I know, we do. We're going to be here for a while, so you guys just hang out.
Are you baritone, tenor?
Well, I started out as a tenor, but I'm one of those odd kind of voices that's a switch hitter.
So you're somewhere in the middle. That's what I am.
Lyric baritone or helping tenor. Yeah.
Lyric baritone.
Kind of some of the both repertoire.
So what is your repertoire? I mean, what do you specialize in? What would be your...
Some of the roles that I do, frequently I do Eisenstein in Fledermaus, which is kind of one of those roles that can go either way.
Yes, Faust.
Absolutely. Although Valentine, as I get older, is a little high.
It is. So. It's sort of high on the side of things, but it's nice and lyric.
Yes, it is.
Nice and lyric.
Which is nice.
And you do Figaro and Don Giovanni.
Absolutely. Well, Giovanni's a little thick for me. Pasquale's good. Barbara Seville is.
Now that's a bit high, I think, on the high side.
Oh, no. Well, for the tenor, yes, but I do the baritone role.
Well, that's what. But even as a baritone, that one aria is a bit on the high side. It's a bit on the high side.
So I do all of that stuff.
So did you go to college then?
Yes.
Where did you go to college?
Cal State Northridge. My wife and I both graduated from the baccalaureate program there.
Now, how did you two meet?
Actually, we met doing a production of Pirates of Penzance some 20 years ago. We were both hired into summer stock, and she was singing Mabel against my Frederick. And I said, you know, I think I like this gal. She sure can sing.
But sure can sing.
Yeah.
So did you feel the earth move? Did you hear a symphony? Were the birds singing? Was it love at first sight?
No.
Was love it 3 or 4 times?
Yeah, well, it's that kind of special kind of love.
Something that grows very slowly.
We've been married for 20 years, and I think the reason is that she is my best friend.
So you feel that she's your soulmate?
Oh, yeah.
Very much so. Okay, now that you've been at the Playhouse for 60 days, what do you think? How does it fit with you?
Very well. The Playhouse needs a kick. It needs a kick in a certain part of its anatomy.
I see.
The problem with, well, here I go. The problem. The challenge.
There you go. The challenge.
Playhouse,
I like that.
Right now.
The challenge
is that it has been under kind of the umbrella of the city of Dayton for a number of years, and because of that, we really haven't done much in terms of outreach into the community to let them know what we've got going on, because we have some exciting programs.
And it's a beautiful theater.
It's wonderful. You work there.
It's
like, a lovely little theater.
That's where we do the concerts.
Yes.
And
it has got to be. It has got to be the best little theater in Dayton.
It's like being in a living room.
Yes.
It seats about a little over 200.
Right.
And it's a very intimate setting.
And it's state of the art. I mean, in terms of the technical theater that we're capable of producing there, in terms of the talent that we draw from, our directors, our producers, our board of directors, we have some talented people. And unfortunately, well, maybe not so unfortunately, but we're just now starting to get the word back out onto the streets about the Dayton Playhouse. And it's an exciting place to go.
More with Don Warrick when we return. Stay with us. We're back with my guest, Don Warrick, director for the Dayton Playhouse. And we were talking before break about your working with about the theater and about the upcoming productions. The theater in itself is very unique. It's one in a kind. I really love it. And where it's located, in Wegerson Gardens, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going out into the country, so to speak, you know. And then when you come into this nice lobby and tell me about the remaining productions for this season. And
well, Moon Over Buffalo closes this Sunday, and then Gypsy opens on the 9th. And that will complete our season for this year. We have some exciting things on the slate. Are you familiar with our summer program, Future Fest?
No, I'm not. Tell us about that.
Oh.
Tell us about Future Fest.
If there's one thing that we hang our hat on at the Dayton Playhouse, one thing that really differentiates us in the marketplace, we have a summer season event called Future Fest. And what it is a festival over a weekend, plays, and I don't have my book in front of me and I depend on it, I'm going to say the 17th, 18th, 19th of July. And it is a new play festival. We accept submissions from all over the country, actually all over the world. We've produced plays from as far away as Sydney, Australia. And over a period of a weekend, we produce 6 plays, brand new works that have never been on their feet, so to speak. And in those 3 days, we produce 6 plays, 3 of which we do as Reader's Theater, 3 of which we do completely produced, completely staged. And we bring in a panel of adjudicators from New York, from London, from all over the world, that really give these playwrights some feedback. Because the reason that we do this whole festival is for new playwrights to take their work from what we call from page to stage.
Okay.
And it's difficult for a playwright that's unknown to get a work produced. So the Dayton Playhouse initiated this thing called Future Fest about 9 years ago. And we literally have had 4 or 5 plays that have come from our Future Fest that have gone on to be produced either on Broadway or off Broadway or in regional theater
excellent
around the
idea.
world. Yeah.
Who thought of that?
He's going to hate me because if he's watching this program, actually there were 3 or 4 people. John, I know you're going to hate me because I can't remember. First Stage Productions in Dayton. There's a small theater, and I'll think of John's last name in just a moment.
It'll come to you after you leave the show.
Yes, it probably will. But there were a group of people about 9 years ago that put the first Future Fest together, and it's been a resounding success ever since. We get funding from Culture Works, we get private funding, philanthropic funding. It's an expensive venture, obviously, to produce 6 plays in a weekend. But our funding and our audience has grown.
And you do all that in one weekend?
One weekend.
Well, how do you change the sets and so forth?
It's a monster.
It's a zoo.
It's ugly.
Wow. Let's talk about the closing production that you have, Gypsy. What is it about Gypsy that makes that musical endure through the years, through the decades? What is so magical about Gypsy? Is it about the mother who maybe missed her calling in life as an actress and is determined to see that her daughter, Louise...
You know this play?
Oh, I know it well.
All right.
Let me entertain you.
Yes.
Let me make you smile.
It's interesting. I think the thing that makes great musicals stand the test of time, 2 things. Obviously the book. And I teach a class at Wright State in the history of musical theater. And there was a turning point in the American musical theater where the book became the thing. And where they kind of transcended from this tradition of variety acts in the vaudeville era around the turn of the century, and some of the masters, the Rodgers and Harts and the Rodgers and Hammersteins and these cats came out and they said, wait a minute, you could have great melody, but unless the book is together, unless people really have something to engage them intellectually, then it's just a variety entertainment. So starting in, I'm going to say, the late 30s, in some small theaters off Broadway, we had this kind of this transition where variety entertainment and melodies that you could sing that would appear on records kind of moved across that line in the sand, and then it became as much a matter of a great dramatic work as well as a great musical work. And Gypsy's one of those shows. It's got all the music, that you'll walk out of the theater humming.
So many, yes, absolutely.
But it also has a great book.
Great story, great music,
Absolutely.
great sets.
Yes. And
it
for
tells
the
a story, too.
Story of Gypsy Rose Lee, for those of you that may or may not know that story. Gypsy Rose Lee was a vaudeville performer right after the turn of the century.
I like that bit in Gypsy when she's in there talking to her father about, what is it, $88? Only $88, Papa.
Yep.
That's all
Yep.
it'll take, for me to get my children out and up on the stage. And,
That's right.
And the father said, I'm not giving you a cent,
That's
Rose.
right. That's right. That's
And then she said, I'll get my kids out of here.
And she does.
And she says goodbye to blueberry pie.
And she does. And the nice thing about the great musicals is you leave the theater with a sense of reaffirmation. Don't you? You walk out going,
Yeah.
the world is okay.
And that brings up another subject that I feel strongly about. The theater, the arts should, in Europe, the opera houses are subsidized through the government.
Absolutely.
It should be that way in America.
Well, it is here in Dayton. It is. And I think that's one of the fortunate things. And I've kind of coined a new slogan for the Dayton Playhouse, and that is the best little theater in Dayton. And I think part of the reason that we can own that as a kind of a marketing hook, if you will, is the fact that the city of Dayton is extremely responsive and responsible for providing us with resources that some small theater companies simply don't have.
Right.
We have a wonderful facility. They pay salaries for some wonderful technical people as well as production people. So we really do have a professional backbone that a lot of community theaters don't have.
There's a lot of good in Dayton. In fact, when I'm on the road, singing concerts and so forth, I always tell people I'm from Dayton, Ohio, the home of aviation and Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Absolutely.
And I want to talk a little bit about your wife, and because she's also a professional singer.
Absolutely.
And she's in charge of the opera department at Wright State University.
Yes.
And so is she a soprano?
Yes.
What kind?
Coloratura.
Coloratura. Okay, so she sings Lucia and Gilda.
Oh, Lucia's her role.
Gilda.
Oh, man. Well, she's kind of, as we all get on in years, we find that there's a certain darkness that creeps into the voice. For me, I no longer sing the real lyric stuff, and she doesn't either. Lucia's a wonderful role for her. As a matter of fact, I'll be directing a production for her at Wright State. I don't know if your listeners may be familiar with an opera called Suor Angelica.
Yes.
Which is just a delightful one-act piece. However, this quarter, she is producing 3 one-act operas that are wonderful. Giancarlo Manotti's The Telephone for 2 performers. Carlisle Floyd, I think is the composer of Old Maid and the Thief.
Right.
Is that Floyd?
I think so.
Okay. She's going to hate me if she sees this and I'm wrong. And then a 3rd opera called Gallantry, which I was not familiar with, but it is wonderful. It is a contemporary 20th century opera, and it takes place in an operating room. It's a spoof on...
Wow, an operating room.
Yeah, well, it's a spoof on sitcom. Or not a sitcom, daytime television.
Does your wife sing the Ballad of Baby Doe?
That is her great role.
That's another beautiful one.
Absolutely.
Beautiful operatic role for coloratura soprano. Well, we're out of time. Will you promise to come back again?
Absolutely, whenever you'll have me.
Thank you. And we can't let you leave without a box of Esther Price Fine Chocolates.
Wonderful.
It's Dayton's best. Thank you so much for coming on.
William, thank you.
Thank you. There's more to come on the William Pace Show. Stay with us. To write to the William Pace Show, write to P.O. Box 3644, Dayton, Ohio 45401. That's P.O. Box 3644, Dayton, Ohio 45401. If your letter is chosen to be read on the air, you'll receive a gift from the William Pace Show. Gotta go. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.